Hi everybody, this is Katie. Welcome to episode 1 of It's a Whoville Christmas. I'm so excited to show you some of the processes I go through even from the very beginning of a build. My island is a hot mess right now. I just barely hit 3 stars and you can see how it looks with everything spread out. I have a few bridges and inclines in place and all the villager houses are spread out all over the place. Now that was on purpose. Because Whoville is a Dr. Seuss story, I really wanted to put a lot of quirkiness and oddity into the island, and so I put the houses all completely scattered about where none of them were really lined up with each other on purpose. I wanted the build to end somewhere between chaos and order, which I know sounds like quite the conundrum. For example, I have this bridge that I would usually have placed so that it flowed into the area. Instead, I turned it around so you have to kind of wander around the pathway a little bit more and flow in kind of a quirky way into the area. Again, just a little odd on purpose. You can see at the moment all the beaches are completely covered in items, and that is part of getting to 3 stars if you're trying to do it really quickly. You just take every single item that you have and you drop it down on the ground. In case you're curious, the other steps I take when getting to 3 stars quickly is to plant a bunch of flowers, I don't cut down any of the trees, and I move all my villagers in. The items that I have in this town already are moved over from my other island. I'm lucky enough that I have 2 switches, and the other island has been going since the very beginning of the game, and a lot of these items are even from Christmas last year when we did season 2. It took a lot of trips, but I dropped the items off from my first island, and my girl on this island just started lining the beach with them because I already had a pretty good feel for where the houses and buildings were going to go, and putting the items on the beach was able to put them out of the way. You'll notice that none of the villager houses and buildings are straight, and that's because I really think of Whoville as being an intentional town but with a lot of really cool chaos and quirkiness to it. So everything is just a little bit off and just kind of a little offset, what I call quirky cute. Think small town core with a little bit of chaos. I'm planning to ignore the beaches because there's no part of the beach that really feels like a Whoville Christmas to me, but I already have a really good idea on how to go about doing this that we'll talk about a little later in today's episode. I'm only planning on using evergreen trees, and a lot of them, because I want it to look like they're in the middle of a forest. I decided the first thing I needed to do was start with the pathing because I have a lot of really interesting intersections and angles, and I have 2 very complicated path systems, so trying to find a way to put them down and really fit into all the area felt like the right place to start. This beautiful, snowy, kind of warm brick tone path is the one that I've decided to use as the streets of town. And what I really love most about it is that it looks like it's snowy and definitely the type of path that people would walk on more, kind of like a city sidewalk. My plan is to move forward by putting a lot of the pathing down without the screen going because I think it's going to be really complicated. You see, I have to move houses, I may have buildings that need to shuffle, even just like Wade's house here that needed to go over one spot to make sure that I had enough room to put the path together the way that I wanted. The main reason I chose this brick path that I'm using is because it had a multitude of different patterns that were really good for creating angles, and I have a lot of angles that I'm using for Whoville. The snowy path here is going to be what goes out of town, and you can see some of the other patterns and things that I've chosen for the island. All the codes that I'm using for Whoville Christmas Island are going to be in the description below, and it's a long list, so I apologize for that. Some of these patterns are ones I've designed myself and they're on my other account, but most of them are ones that I shop for using a lot of various different keywords that I put right into the portal. As you can see, I have a lot of pathing to do to figure out the flow of my island, so I'm going to get to the work and I'll come back and see you guys when that work is done. Before I could do the path, I actually had to stop and take all the bushes and flowers out of place because they were spread all over and I didn't have enough room to put the path down, but it didn't take me too long to get those sorted out, and I mostly just moved things off into the beach. This was my very first time using a brick path that was so complicated as this one, but I really loved it, and you can see here now that the whole entire path is put down, a lot of the town has come together. There's already a ton of character, and I feel like half the work on the island is done already just because the path has so much intricacy to it. Just while I'm walking around town, you can get a really good feel for what I'm thinking of for the island and how I picture the area moving from one location to another. It was really useful to take this image of the island I had in my head and kind of put it out into a path form, because this is one of those themes where I have this beautiful vision in my head of what it's going to look like, but it's really hard to communicate what that's going to be in advance. If you're ever questioning what type of theme that you want to do for your island and you really just don't know, I definitely recommend finding a path pattern that you really like and seeing what themes really go with it. It's a really good place to start on any island. When I was doing the out-of-town dirt path, I really ran into a little bit of frustration. You can see that it doesn't line up really well. The corner to corner, when you're kind of going around angles and such, I can see the corner sticking out. I thought about ignoring it and not getting too complicated and putting a lot of things in front, but even just where I had my workbench here, I can't cover up every single one of those little corners as it sticks out. I decided to try a couple other dirt patterns, and this first one is amazing. It really is rich and gorgeous. It has a lot of beautiful texture to it, and I love it, but it just doesn't feel like Whoville to me. It doesn't really feel like the playful style that I'm going for. This next pattern is just what I needed. It has a couple areas that might not line up perfectly, but because everything is so kind of spiky, it fits right in and it doesn't seem to be as much as a problem, and I really love the triangle pattern inside of it. It definitely feels more like the cartoonish Whoville type of style that I had in my mind, so I definitely decided that this is going to be the path I'm going to do for the outside dirt path. If you're looking in my codes in the description of this video, this is the path that you'll find listed as dirt path. With all the pathing done, it was time to start looking at decorations, and I decided the map was really boring. Without having that really good path connecting the houses visible on the map, I wanted something a little bit decorative to see that was visible literally if you were just looking at the map. It gave me an idea for a little bit of a flower bed that I could do that could be kind of silly for Whoville, and I decided to do these little round flower beds where I could kind of do a regular border that looks like a square, round out the corners a little bit, and leave the middle empty. I'm mostly going to fill it up with red and white flowers, maybe a few green mums if I can manage to grow them, and then I'm going to put something in the middle like a rock or some type of a stool. The next step was a huge one. I have all these items that are just sitting everywhere, and you know what? I should have put them in better patterns when I was putting everything out right from the beginning, but I didn't, so I go through and do a lot of organizing. I start putting all the like items in piles with each other. This is really time consuming, but it's also worth it because I need to take a lot of these items and customize them for color and coordination to my island. I also have quite a few items that I need to take to Wreath on Harv's island and have him customize them. In addition, a lot of these items go in different areas of the island. For example, anything that's going to go in town is going to be a really classic, beautiful Christmas type of design. Anything that's going up on the mountain is going to be trashy Grinch design. That is a huge difference. For that purpose, I took anything I knew was going to go all the way up the mountain and I put it up the mountain because I'm creating a whole entire second profile that's going to be utilizing those items, so it was pretty easy to just drop them in the different spots. As it happened, I had a lot of items to move, so this process did take quite a while. After moving all the items into piles, I took what seemed like a year to buy all the customization kits that I needed. Then I took all the items over to the workstation and I got them all customized over into the colors that I was looking for, and took pockets full of items over to Harv's Island to get them adjusted. You can see how this went. At long last, I was ready to start decorating Whoville Christmas Island, so I'm going to jump into a traditional speed build and show you how I went about it. With a good chunk of decorating down, I decided it was time to stop and address my beach problem. I think I mentioned earlier in the video that I had an idea. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm literally going to fence off the entire beach. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm going to fence off the entire beach, and I'm going to put as many trees as I have room for right against the border so that it looks more like it's in a forest. I'm hoping that the illusion works so that when you're in the town and you're walking around, if you just can't get out to the beach, you don't notice that it's there because there'll be too many trees blocking the view. As I say this, it is a little bit theoretical because I don't know if it's going to work, but I figure I'll give it a try because if I was ever going to do it for any island, it's going to be this one. I just don't see beaches as part of Whoville. The next task on my list was a pretty big deal, or at least it's a bigger deal than it appears. While I had all of the trees planted into these tiny little bitty sprouts, it was time to go through and put a lot of custom pattern down underneath them. I could absolutely do that if I waited until the trees grow, but it's actually easier to do and see if I do it now. As you can see from the video, I'm using 4 different kinds of patterns as I place down every single space, and even in some places I go ahead and I pick up the items that are on the ground just so that that pattern looks consistent. There are 4 patterns altogether. One is a little holly pattern, one is kind of a brown dead leaf pattern, and then 2 of them are little weed snow patterns. As is traditional for me, I do fill every single space on the ground with a pattern unless I particularly set an area aside for something like gyroids or plants, and I do this partially because I like the way that an island looks complete and I really like to have control of what grows where. In addition to those 4 patterns, you can see I'm also using 4 of my different rock patterns just here and there, not too many rocks, but occasionally it's really nice to kind of break up the woodsy feel. If you're worried about how dramatic some of these patterns look over the top of the snow, keep in mind that I'm going to be doing the tour and the dream address for this island at nighttime, so I wanted those patterns to really show up. Speaking of tours, I think we've made enough progress that I can stop, move to nighttime, and show you guys what the island is looking like. Alright you guys, I have the island set to nighttime and I think you can see how much it sparkles. I love the way the path looks at night. I love the way that it looks wintry and white. And here you can see I have an empty spot for the post office. I have empty space here for community area. Over here, of course, we'll have a tree and then a little bit of a cafe in front of the museum. There's a lot of room still that needs to be done, but a huge amount of our city, at least Whoville City, is already looking amazing. I'm actually really surprised at how quickly a lot of the progress on this island has come together. Don't get me wrong, there's still a long way to go. We have the entire Grinch and his mountain to do. We have the toy store and the rest of the shops and post office to do. Out of town, we're going to do a little bit of a tree farm. There's still a lot of projects that need addressing, but I love the way that Whoville has come together. All of the lights just glistening in the middle of the night. I think my favorite part about doing the Christmas Island here at night is that I'm not overwhelmed by the white. There's so much warmth. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please, if you've made it this far in the video, tell me in the comments below what your favorite part of Christmas in Whoville is as it's coming together already. Also, if you're not subscribed, please think about doing so and hitting that notification bell so you always know when I have a new video coming up. I hope you found something useful here and that you continue creating in this game. Until next time, have the best Animal Crossing day.